Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's February 19th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And a real quick look at our daily chart. You can see we did go higher today, but notice how we closed below that resistance line. So that resistance still holding. Looks like we're trading outside of it now, but what happens from 5 o'clock to maybe midnight doesn't really matter because that'll completely change by tomorrow. So we don't pay much attention to that. So all we're really worried about at this point is what transpired before up till 4 o'clock today. And you can see we did open a little lower, traded higher, and closed higher. We went much higher, but we closed back near this resistance point. So this resistance, as of now, is still holding. So we'll see if we can push through there or not. There's some clues that because we made these higher lows up through here that we could go higher, but it may take a few tries to get through that resistance. That resistance really runs from mm, it runs from right in here all the way up to about here. So it's about 24 points that we could still push higher without really completely pushing above that last high. So it's kind of hard to, but you can see where the resistance has been actually a little lower here lately, and we've pushed through that and closed above it today. So that kind of matches with where I already had it there. And my next move would probably be there. That's probably more of where I would have it, right across there. And in that case, we haven't really closed through it yet. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. If we can push on through there, even if we do push through, I would expect it to pull back and test it unless it just completely fails and reverses. So, but the way this is acting, prices could still go higher because we've tested this a couple of times. We're working on our third test here in a row, and eventually we're either going to go higher or it's going to turn lower. So I wouldn't necessarily call these separate tests because they're all 3 days in a row, but that's 3 days we could not close really through there. So it's hard to say if prices are going to push on through or not, but it certainly looks like they're not turning down yet. So I would still leave it to the possibility that we're going higher yet. So, um, and we'll leave it at that. But let's flip over to the 2,000 tick chart. You can see it's very similar. We opened, traded lower, reversed, and took a large portion of today back again. So, I mean, we seem to do that every day lately. And what'll happen, make sure you don't allow this to happen. Let me flip over to the other chart first. So what'll happen is people get used to this. It's been doing this a lot lately. We open in the overnight, we trade lower, we find some support, and reverse, and we go up. And it'll do that every day for a week, and then all of a sudden somebody will try to get long down here thinking it's going to do the exact same thing, and then it fails on them and continues lower, and they're like, "Well, I thought I should buy down here." So you don't. What I'm trying to tell you is get don't get locked in on this pattern because it will change. And that's what happens to people. And we'll have a range day every day for a week, and it'll run down to the bottom of the range, and people will buy or watch it, and it'll bounce and go up, and then all of a sudden one day they finally get the nerve. Well, I'm going to buy down there today, and they buy down here, and it doesn't bounce and reverse, and it goes lower, and they wondered why they got stopped out. But you just gotta make sure that you don't get lulled to sleep is the way I like to describe it. The market will start doing something quite a bit, and it will just kind of lull you to sleep and get you used to that pattern. And then boom, it'll change on a blink, and and you'll take a loss. And so don't get caught up in the pattern when it starts to do the same things every day. And it's done this a lot. I mean, if we look back, yesterday traded down, went a little further, but by the end of the day, it reversed. Day before that, we traded down. That's mostly sideways there on that day. this day it traded down. This was a rally, more of a rally day too. Um, Here we traded down, and then we took a lot of it back. Traded down, took it all back. So you see what I'm saying? You get these patterns, and sometimes they'll go for weeks and weeks and weeks, and people get to think that's the way the market is every day, and they get lulled to sleep, and then boom, it changes on them, and they have a big rally day or a big sell-off day, and they get completely confused because they're not really. You're not. What happens is they're not really reading the market. They're not really reading the chart and what the chart's telling them. They're just going. They're just looking at the pattern that they've been seeing every day and thinking it looks the same and going to do the same. And it won't. It won't always do that. So just keep that in mind. Let's get to the chart lesson here, and we'll get through this day and go through the trades and wrap today up. Let's zoom in here and go through the trades. Seven o'clock came right in here. I can't remember which bar hit. I think it's the actual signal bar we were. Actually, that one's just into 7 o'clock. It's like just a minute or two or before. So, and it is a second entry. I marked it. If you were here, you could take it. The better trade is the lower high, which comes right here. And but there's a situation. This one, it breaks higher first and fails and turns down. And by the time it closes, this bar is 25 ticks. So you could still go short down here, but I think it's much too risky by that. I think it's too big a bar. I think that if you're going to enter here, you just about have to enter at the on the engulfing bar, and that's 95% of you shouldn't be trading that. That's very advanced. It's for most it's for profitable traders that have been trading a while and are profitable. So most of you should ignore that. If you understand about engulfing bars and when you can enter and so forth, and you have to have a good opposite signal bar here that's mostly bullish, and you can see that one is. So I think you would be okay to enter on, and you're enter one tick below it. When it breaks higher and turns down, you could go short one tick below that. But most of you are better off to wait till this closes to make sure you know that you're reading the chart right, and then try to go short. But by that point, it's a pretty big bar. It's still a nice trade either way you took it. But do you want to risk 25 ticks? I don't know. So I don't highly recommend that, but you do. You run down here, you get a break and a new low, and you get two legs back to the EMA and the trend line again. This trend line is obviously in play, and you got a big second entry here. Now you can't enter this one on the engulfing bar. Wait till it closes, but it is a second entry. I like going short there. Then we just start kind of chopping sideways. It's tempting to go long right there, and it would have worked, but that's the first break of the trend line, and the trend is down. I think it's too risky to go long there. And then you're just chopping along. I don't really like any of these entries. This is a possibility, but you can see all you've got is to the midline because it's been bouncing at the midline every time. And you've got like 1.25 points, so you just don't have enough points. So just even though it works, you don't know it's going to work, so you just have to skip that. It bounces down here on at least a triple test, but no signal bar. You finally get back up here. The signal bar is horrible again. And then you actually break out, which most breakouts are going to fail, so you're going to expect it to try to get back into the range. And notice you get a 1, 2, 3 triple test here. I like that bar right there. Go long right there. Now, some people might say, why didn't you enter here? If you did, it would have worked. But as you see what happens, you got to wait that out. Almost twice you get stopped out. Looks like you're going to get stopped out. I like to have at least a triple test. Now, there's some cases where you might go along there, and I guess I should still mark it green because it is a second entry. It is a failed breakout. It is a higher, basically, I think it's a higher low. It doesn't make a lower low there, does it? 29.25. I mean, it's real close. I think it's a perfect, yeah, it's a perfect double bottom. So it is a higher low. So maybe you take that one, but I like to wait on know for sure, and then you get a triple test and you see how it rockets out of there. And you do get a higher low here after the triple test. Now it's not perfect, but it does make a little 2-bar matching low, so that's the same thing as a new low. I'd still put my safety stop below that, one tick below this bar though, but you could go long above that bar. Now there's a higher low here, but I wouldn't take that because there's not much room to where you've kind of been turning down across there. It actually takes off, but you don't know that in advance. You got a breakout up here, and you get an overshoot of this channel working up, but your signal bar is no good. And you usually want to wait on the lower high anyway, and that comes right here. The only reason I mark that green is because it's got a good bit of stem. I still think it closes in its lower 1/3, but it's got a good bit of stem to it, and it's 11 ticks. It's not humongous, but it's not perfect, so I marked it green. But it's close to being red. So, and of course it bounces. Now somebody asked me about a bounce on a breakout here. This I would call this a successful test, but you need at least 2, maybe 3 of these before you'd want to go long on a breakout, because most breakouts fail. And you see this one, it takes a minute, but it ends up failing. But it's certainly not taking off either. Now the original breakout did, but after that it didn't do much, and it comes back. Now if you'd had a good signal bar, this would have been the ideal place to go long. Does that close in the upper 1/3? Maybe it does. And it is a second entry, but you're not really counting second entries here. You're just looking to play the range. So if you're playing range rules and you feel good with that signal bar, you could take that. It's not a perfect signal bar, so I'm just going to mark it green. And I didn't really want to mark it originally, but I think you could take that trade, just like you could take this one. But I don't see anything in here I would want to risk. If this one would have closed back inside the range, I'd say take it. But it doesn't happen. So, but this turns out, I mean, these failed breakouts to one side or another often turn out to be important points. And even though this didn't really break out, we took off from here, and that turned out to be the important low of the day. And you don't really get another chance till a triple test here and a higher high here. The only reason I didn't like this higher high is because you're getting back into this resistance. It's probably going to go higher. I mean, you can see there's a new low here, so it's a failure, but it's not a continuation pattern. It's certainly not a reversal pattern, so you can't trade the failure. But I think you could argue it's a triple test of the midline, even if it's not a triple test of this line, which I still think it's close enough, because you probably could have moved this up to here and argued that's the spot, and you can clearly see you got at least 3 tests there. So I think you're okay to go long there. I marked it green because it's a little more convoluted. It is congested, so there's a chance it could fail on you. So anyway, it goes higher. Just a first entry. But now you've had your close outside and at least 2 legs up, and you got a big bearish bar. Maybe you go short there. Again, you're better off to wait on the lower high, and we just don't get one. Now you do get that double matching double top there. 2-bar matching high is what I call that. But I don't think that's good enough here. I think you need to wait and see what else happens. Now you do get a reversal. Well, technically you don't, because that doesn't break higher. So I didn't like counting that as a reversal, or you could have maybe entered there. But then of course it doesn't break below that bar. You get an inside bar. So I don't think I'd enter anyway. Run down, you get a close outside, new low, and again, no signal bar. Higher lows right into the EMA. You can't take that. And it takes off. And again, you get another overshoot here. We had several of these today, and a second entry short there. So look how far away you are from the EMA. Now, if you didn't get the overshoot, I'd say don't take this. And this is getting really close to 12, but this bar closes, it's not quite 12 o'clock. And so being that far away from the EMA with an overshoot and a nice signal bar, I say take that trade. You see what happens. Now, once you got inside this blue, which is the 1 o'clock I don't think it's on here today because it's already fallen off. So you can't necessarily take a new trade in here, but there's nothing wrong with managing your current trade. Just be out before 1 o'clock when that news comes out. And there just really wasn't much to the news today, which, it wasn't actually a rate announcement. It was just the minutes. But a lot of times the minutes are real crazy too. So maybe it takes a few more minutes to digest those, and maybe that's what all this is here. But I think you were okay to enter by about 5 minutes after. Generally, if it's not going crazy, at least wait 5 minutes. That's my rule on that, what I would suggest to most people. And it does take off, and it runs back to the high. We went from the low to the high of the, and that's the other thing. That just sets the trend line, but you can see it's fitting in there, and it does come back here and confirm it. But anyway, run to the high. We're just kind of working sideways, and we get a little failed breakout. Maybe you take that one. You're always better to take the lower high. You get a lower high here, but it doesn't look very good. But then you try to go higher again, and I like going short on that one because you're still not back to the EMA again. So that's the better entry. And you see it drops on down, and it actually fails out the other side. And you may trade that as a failure. Again, you're better off to wait on the high or low, and you don't really get one. It just kind of keeps going, comes back, and by the time that forms, you got these two dojis with no bodies, and I would just sit tight and see what happens. And you see it kind of, notice that we didn't get to the high here either. So, and we broke lower, so that's not a good sign here. We could run up and make a new high, but the fact we came back and tested the low and we're not getting any rejection here, and the bottom just falls out. Now, if you had a good signal bar here, that would be a second entry long. I'd say go long there. And maybe that closes in the upper 1/3. I think it's slightly outside of it. And it's late in the day. It's almost 2:30, so I'd just say skip that one. And that took us into the 2:30 hour. So that's how I saw it today. Not a lot of trades. Your best option was this early trend down through here. And you could, if you can start at 7, I like to start at 7, and if you catch either one of those, you're probably through before 8 o'clock. Definitely before 8:30. So that's what I like to do. I like to get in there, get my trade or two real early, hopefully hit my goal in a trade or two, and be done. And then the rest of the day is to do whatever else I can do. And it was, so if I wasn't trying to run this website and teach others to trade, I'd be out doing what I like to. I mean, the wintertime is not much you can do anyway. It's so cold and wet in here. I wasn't sure I was going to get to come in today because they were talking about freezing rain and an ice storm here, but it's cold, but we got a little dusting of snow, and that's it. So thank goodness the roads, because I'm just getting caught up, and I didn't want another day not coming in where I'd get behind some more. So but yeah, if it was summertime, it doesn't get dark till late. I mean, it doesn't matter what time it gets dark. If it was summertime, if you like to play golf, you go play golf. If you like to go fishing, you got time to go fishing, because the day's just getting started and you're already done with your trading by 8 o'clock, when you get those 7 to 8 a.m. setups like that. And on most days, you can be done by 10 or 11, definitely by noon. And so I think the morning is the better trading. Towards the end of 2024, we had several days there where the morning was terrible, but we had good afternoons. And that's kind of flip-flop from what it is historically, because historically I would say 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time, from 7 to about 10 is your best trading. And then it just kind of changes because most all your orders and your big traders and the banks and all, they're doing their stuff early. They've got their stuff set up, and doesn't mean they're not still buying during the day. But the market just seems to be more ordered and more structured early on, and then it gets a little more volatile or a little more, it's just not as well structured in the afternoons, especially late afternoons. And you can see by today, really, the trading by about 1 o'clock, just after that news, we got a little spike, and then much. I mean, we had some movement in there, but not much. And then you know, it's only after 1 o'clock. There's only an hour and a half trading anyway. So, but um, not much happens. So on these FOMC days and the days where we get this big news at 1 o'clock, you lose a good bit of your afternoon anyway. So you're better off to try to get everything in before lunchtime. And sometimes it's so volatile after that 1 o'clock that it doesn't settle down till almost 2 o'clock. Then the day's pretty much over. So, but anyway, there it is. I'm just feel like I'm just yakking here, so I'm going to wrap this one up. We'll be back again and do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.